Any upward movement in share price has not been without its share of hiccups. While inflation and rate hikes are the dominant factors that steer the course of markets, the share of other factors like crude oil, commodities, currencies, FI movements, geopolitical tensions, political uncertainties, policies and regulations, as well as frauds and scams are no less intimidating, as they too play a dominant role in the highs and lows of markets. Although they propel the markets, they are yet independent of each other. All these factors have at some point or the other affected stocks, movement of markets, and the economy, either directly or indirectly. Inflation. Inflation is the rise in general level of prices of goods and services in an economy over a period of time. In simple terms, one can buy fewer things for 100 rupees now than what he would have bought some time back. When the rate of inflation increases, it simply means that things are becoming expensive but at a faster rate. However, if the price of goods and services fall, it is called deflation, and it is the opposite of inflation. When the rate of inflation decreases, it does not imply that things are becoming cheaper. It only means that they are getting more expensive at a lesser rate. The prime cause of inflation is demand-supply mismatch. When the demand for a product goes at a faster rate than supply, I mean buyers are willing to pay more, this is called demand pull inflation. And when the company increases the price of their products due to increase in production cost or any other reason, it is called cost push inflation. Rapid economic growth leads to higher money with people, which prompts them to spend more, leading to inflation. While increase in price of raw materials forces companies to hike their product price to keep their margins intact, both giving rise to inflation. Printing too much money, changes in tax structure, war, or depreciation in exchange rates also cause instability. This can also give rise to inflation. Inflation eats away real value of currency. Individuals tend to spend more as they believe that things will become costlier in future, hence contributing to growth. An appropriate level of inflation rate in an economy is always desired by policymakers. Controlled growth of an inflation can become part of business growth, simply because savings are often invested as there is net loss if they are kept in banks. Consumers spend more, leading to higher sales growth for companies, which on a broader level transmits into higher growth for the economy. This is what is desired by every economy. Inflation can sometimes get out of control and has widespread effects, ranging from decrease in purchasing power, a rich-poor divide, unemployment, and worsening of balance of payment of economy. The biggest casualty will be banking stocks, which have a direct implication in the form of slowdown in borrowings and amount of deposits that a bank must have stacked in its vaults. Rate-sensitive sectors like automobiles and real estate will also see the pinch as loans come with a higher interest rate directly hitting their top lines. Interest rates. The benchmark indices always seems worried about rising interest rates or that the RBI has hiked rates to tame inflation. So what are these interest rates after all, and why must everyone give this factor so much importance? To put it simply, interest rates are the markup that the borrower, either individual or company, pays over the principal amount to his lender for the use of this money over a stipulated period of time. Interest rates are expressed as a percentage over 1 year period. Interest rates can be a vital tool in the hands of monetary authorities like RBI in case of India when dealing with variables like inflation or investments. When interest rates are low, cheaper credit is available. So, there are many borrowers who are willing to take loans. This means that more money is generated in the system, and this can lead to high inflation. In order to control inflation, RBI is thus left with no choice but to hike rates, and this is costlier for banks to lend money. Thus, in this way, money is pumped out of the system, and it keeps inflation in check. How rising interest rates impact common man and control inflation? Let's say, in case if bank increases interest rates by 1%, in all probability, the bank giving a loan will also respond with 1% increase in the floating rate of interest as well. This means that the monthly repayments will increase and the individuals are left with less purchasing power. Consumption in general will see a contraction, and thus this will help controlling inflation to certain extent. Not only individuals, corporates also have to suffer with rising interest rates. Companies need capital to run their day-to-day operations. Capital comes in the form of debt and equity. Bank borrowings form a large part of debt raised by companies. Therefore, if interest rate goes up, borrowings become costlier, and hence companies have to pay a higher amount to service this debt. Of course, companies have the option of passing on the impact of rising cost to its end users, but an intensely competitive market does not allow it very often. So, the company is left with a very less choice but to absorb the burden all by itself. As a result, the company's profit declines, making the stock unattractive for a potential stock market investors. For a long period of time, continuously rising interest rates may also impact the fundamentals of the company, thus impacting the growth of economy on a macro perspective. From the market investor's point of view, while rising interest rates hurt certain interest rate sensitive sectors such as banking, automobile, auto ancillaries, and real estate, which are directly impacted by rising rates. Therefore, with hike in rates, these stocks will take a beating. Therefore, it is a common practice among market investors to move from interest rate sensitive sectors to safe haven sectors such as pharma or FMCG, which are relatively insulated from interest rate risks. One might postpone buying a house in a high interest rate regime, but he cannot obviously postpone the purchase of daily items such as soaps, detergents, or medicines. Interest rates can be a vital tool in the hands of monetary authorities like RBI in case of India when dealing with variables like inflation or investments. Central banks thus have to walk on a tightrope to keep the balance between growth and inflation. Crude oil is an essential commodity for any economy, whether it is a developed economy or a developing one. Not surprisingly, many wars have been fought over crude oil, and global politics too, to a large extent, revolve around this commodity. Crude oil, therefore, merits a special attention among all other commodities. Crude oil is an important ingredient for the manufacture of petroleum products like petrol, diesel, kerosene, and gas. There are two types of companies that deal with crude oil. The first ones are those that mine crude oil directly from Earth's surface and have direct access to oil blocks. ONGC, Reliance Industries, and Shell are some of the major players in this category. The second category of companies comprise of refineries, who buy crude oil and refine it into different downstream products like petrol and diesel. These companies directly take their products to the end customer. Therefore, they are also known as oil marketing companies. Some of them are IOC, BPCL, HPCL, etc. However, same companies might also mine the crude oil, refine it, and market it through its own distribution network. Globally, crude oil prices are benchmarked against Brent and NYMEX. While Brent is widely used as a benchmark in Europe and Asia, NYMEX is used in North America. Crude oil can impact an economy in many ways. With the rise in crude prices, the input cost of power and energy too rises. Most companies try to pass on this burden to their customers. As a consequence, the output price of different products and services in an economy rises, although with a time lag. As we know, the higher rate of inflation reduces customers' demand for goods and services in an economy, thereby bringing down the real rate of growth in the GDP. When we take into account the rise in crude oil prices on the markets, we see it directly leads to rise in freight cost, increase in transportation cost, hike in price of crude derivatives like naphtha, HDP, PCU, etc. When the price of petrol and diesel increases, the transportation cost of company also rises as transporters begin charge more to maintain their operating profit margins. Transport companies will pass on most of this increase in operating expenditure to the end customer. Household consumption bills, especially kerosene and LPG, will also see increasing. In effect, the customer will have to pay more for same kind of products. This phenomena, when takes place across different industries, we say that inflation has reached a very high level. Similarly, the rise in crude oil prices indirectly affects balance of payments, currency rates, and also leads to rise in country's fiscal deficit. In India, the price of key energy sources like petrol, diesel, kerosene, cooking gas, etc. are regulated by government. As a result, the government has to bear a large portion of these losses incurred by government-owned oil refining and marketing companies. And these losses usually run into thousands of crores. It means that government has to pay a huge crude oil bill from its own pocket, thus widening the fiscal deficit. The situation could worsen if government already has a high fiscal deficit and crude oil prices increase further. If government plans to borrow from the market by issuing bonds, it could add to inflationary pressures. Otherwise, the government would have to continue with higher fiscal deficit. The impact of higher crude oil prices are multifold. As inflation rate increases, analysts say that economy is likely to grow at a slower pace. When crude oil prices surged from $90 per barrel to $140 per barrel during January 2008 to July 2008, the inflation in India has reached a double-digit number. In another scenario, if company wishes to retain significant chunk of the rise in operating expenses, then their net profits will decline. This may not do well with market participants. So, analysts will start downgrading the earnings forecast and stock target prices. Higher crude oil prices affect currencies too, as higher crude bill will force government to sell more domestic currency in exchange of US dollar. This may weaken the domestic currency. For example, if the Indian government or companies sell more domestic currency in exchange of US dollar, then the exchange rate may widen, let's say from 45 per dollar to 50 per dollar. This means a currency trader or an investor in Indian rupee may also incur losses since the value of rupee is coming down. However, to have any material impact in the currency market, the fiscal deficit needs to be really high. The only class of asset which are considered as safe bet during high crude oil price scenario are precious metals. Gold, the safest among precious metals, usually moves up during this period. Also, it is considered as good hedge against inflation caused by higher crude oil prices. Commodities are important raw materials for finished goods. The commonly used commodities can be categorized into different complexes like base metals, agri-commodities, energies, and precious metals. Every commodity from the commodity complex has a key role to play in nation's economy. To begin with, commodities affecting inflation directly are considered very important by policymakers in any country. If the inflation is driven by demand-side problems, then it can be controlled to a certain extent by the consuming country. Otherwise, the policymakers have very little to influence international commodity prices. For instance, the price of most metals are denominated in the US dollar, and India can hardly influence their prices. The London Metal Exchange is the main exchange where metal prices are traded. The trading price at the LME is considered as the benchmark for companies dealing in base metals. Commodity prices are influenced mainly by two factors: liquidity in the market and the supply-demand scenario. The first factor is the function of overall money in the circulation, economic growth expectations, etc. For instance, when a big size hedge funds have significant money, they try to speculate in the commodity market. In such a scenario, even if the physical demand for these commodities has not increased, their prices may see significant increase in metal exchanges. And since these benchmark prices are followed by manufacturers and producers alike, the cash outflow for commodity consumers increase proportionately. The second factor, that is demand and supply, is actually driven by geopolitical situations and economic growth. Factors like war, natural disasters, change in guard, etc. negatively impact the supply of a commodity and hence pushes price upwards. For instance, the supply of coal in the world market will be affected if there is any major flood in Australia, which is one of the largest producers of coal worldwide. Similarly, crude prices usually go up whenever there is a war-like scenario. Supply side constraints, higher demand resulting from real growth in economy could also push prices upwards. Last time, when China was hosting Olympics in 2008, the steel prices skyrocketed due to higher demand from China. If there is a steep increase in the prices of most commodities, it could potentially push inflation northwards. This could consequently force the central banks to tighten the monetary policy by making funds costlier. This can finally result in slowdown in economic growth. Commodities account for large portion of cost of raw materials for many companies, one of the most important operating expenses for any industry. For instance, iron ore and coking coal account for more than 2/3 of the raw material cost for steel company. If there is a rise in particular commodity that impacts a particular industry, then companies in that sector will take a hit in terms of profitability. If they pass on the rise in input cost to their customers, then the sales demand will take a hit. On the other hand, if they bear the burden of the surge in commodity prices, then their operating profits will be shaved off. Usually, companies choose a middle path to deal with such scenarios. Agri-commodities like vegetables and rice have a direct impact on the basic livelihood of people. This is more so in developing countries like India. And since this is a very crucial political issue, any demand-driven rise in food prices would force the monetary authorities to raise the interest rates. This could have a cascading effect on other interest rate sensitive sectors like auto, banking, and real estate. Whatever the case may be, any disproportionate rise in commodity prices could slow down the growth of an economy. The rise in commodity prices leads to higher inflation, resulting in a higher interest rate regime, and finally impairing economic growth. However, a modest increase in commodity prices in times of economic growth is considered a positive. If there is an excessive rise in commodity prices across sectors, then this could be a potential downgrading of earnings in most industries. Few sectors that may be left unaffected are software services and to certain extent telecom. With the wave of globalization engulfing Indian corporates, a meaningful portion of revenues for these corporates come from overseas market. Many listed companies derive more than 50% of their revenues in non-rupee denominations, suggesting that most of them are exposed to currency fluctuations. Of these, most companies are into computer software business and are followed by textiles, drug formulations, diamond, IT BPO, and pharma companies. Information technology industry. In the late 1990s, the information technology wave took the country by surprise, and every company intended to get into software business. More than 20 years now, Indian IT companies continue to remain the brain behind software-related project executions. Indian IT companies today are known for two basic services in computer-related business: IT BPO and software. Indian IT companies continue to be preferred as one of the economical destinations for outsourcing, and they derive more than 50% of their revenues from foreign exchange. Textile industry. The textile industry continues to be one of the prominent sectors dependent on overseas market for substantial revenues. Many of textile companies export garments, cotton, yarn, fabric making and designer work to companies based on US, Europe and other countries. Drug formulation and pharma industry. In drug formulation space, companies cater to research requirements of pharma companies from other countries. Indian pharmaceutical companies do the research on drug and its composition. Foreign companies give them contracts for conducting research. Many Indian pharmaceutical companies launch their own drugs overseas. These companies, however, exercise caution while patenting a drug. A drug is only launched overseas when the patent of the drug of a similar composition expires. Diamond industry. Gems and jewelry companies also benefit a great deal from foreign markets. India is said to be a global trading hub for diamonds. Many diamond companies are engaged in polishing, designing, and branding of diamonds. These companies' association overseas has its flip side too. Due to foreign currency fluctuations, the financial performance of companies in these sectors suffer a lot. Financial performance of these companies can be weak because of mark-to-market losses on forex loans and outstanding forex derivative contracts. Derivative contracts reduces the interest cost if companies take dollar loans, but appreciation of rupee erodes revenues and profits of exporters as they make fewer rupees for every dollar earned abroad. Also, they have to service dollar loans on which they have to incur high interest outflow. Currency flux too play a dominant role in the earnings of companies involved in the business of imports. The major companies associated with business imports are petroleum products such as mineral fuel, mineral oil, products of their distillations, mineral waxes, natural gas, etc. Other imports are imitation jewelry and engineering machinery. Experts say that full integration of Indian financial markets with international markets is a key aspect to reduce the excessive dependence of one currency's domination on the other. An important factor influencing market sentiments in India today is the movement of foreign institutional investors, commonly known as FIIs. These are financial institutions from a country outside India registered with our capital market regulator SEBI. FIIs can be from any country and are usually hedge funds, mutual funds, pension funds, investment trusts, or insurance companies looking for opportunities to invest outside their own country and to obtain better returns on their investment portfolio. There are several factors that determine the investment decision making of FIIs. These are high national and economic growth rates, exchange rate stability, interest rates, tax on capital gains, the speed and reliability with which dispute settlements takes place, and the degree of protection of investors' rights. FII investments into India increased substantially and aligned itself with the international order, thanks to the globalization of capital markets. In fact, over the last 15 years, FII flows have become the basis for many opinion makers' analysis. Being a professional body of fund managers or financial analysts, FIIs have over the years contributed to better disclosure and improving corporate governance among Indian companies. However, rising portfolio investments has not always been a boon. FII investments are also classified as hot money, which means that these funds are invested by those who are actively seeking short-term returns. These investors are thus always scanning the markets for short-term, high-interest rate investment opportunities, thus causing erratic movements when they pull out money as a reaction to any negative event. FIIs were the first ones to identify the potential in Indian technology stocks. However, before the dot-com bubble burst that resulted in the fall of US-based Nasdaq and subsequent Ketan Parikh scam that hit the country, FIIs have already exited those scripts and made tidy profits. It was from the beginning of September 2008 that FIIs started pulling out funds. During the course of year 2009, FIIs have pulled out a whopping 47,706 crore, almost close to 53,000 crores that they had invested in the previous year into Indian equities. FII flows began to resume from January 2010 when the Indian economy started reviving and Sensex was hovering close to 20,000 mark. By October 2010, FII investment has touched 1 lakh crore mark. The recent memory of FIIs pulling out funds from India does not date back too far. Hot money can therefore have severe implications on country's economy and banking system. Besides, FII flows can lead to fluctuations of currency, that is, rupee in our case, and result in export industries becoming uncompetitive. Also, large amount of FII inflows will in turn generate larger demand for rupee, thus adding to inflationary pressures, which again is a problem for central banks. But the largest risk that an emerging economy like ours runs from portfolio investments is the impact on small investors. Having a strong hold, FII movements can have a great influence on the markets. Aggressive FII buying pushes the market up, while selling in hordes sends the benchmark indices spiraling downwards. It is in this phenomena that a retail investor might get stuck and lose money due to erratic FII movements. The only solution to this is increasing the potential of our domestic institutional investors, who have to match up to the FII flows. Stock markets react to news, and it goes without saying that a geopolitical event has the potential to upset many calculations. While there is no precise meaning for a geopolitical event, it is widely understood as a risk to return on investments due to unwanted consequences arising from geographical or political activity. A geopolitical event, planned or unplanned, implies political risk in terms of government interference with business operations. Uninvited events are due to change in government, legislative bodies, other foreign policy makers, terrorist attacks, or military control. Events like unrest in Middle East, tensions between US and North Korea, Eurozone debt crisis, and China's persistent attempt to keep their currency undervalued are some of the geopolitical events. These can give tough time to asset classes, commodities, currencies, and stocks. It can cause havoc to companies, markets, and economy as a whole. In isolation, a geopolitical event may be thought to have lesser impact. But with globalization spreading its wings, it is imperative for investors to keep a tab on various macro events which can prevent their wealth from getting eroded, or at least help them pull off their stocks during such undesired events. There are different types of linkages between any two countries. Let's say imports and exports in trade terms, FDI and FII investment in financial terms. In today's age, the political environment is the most important factor for international business, and it holds more significance for India as more and more corporates hunt for overseas business, naturally exposing them to country risk. The Indian stock markets, which are heavily dependent on foreign institutional investors, may face redemption pressure on outburst of any event, causing wealth erosion. Economists widely believe that there are many signals indicating geopolitical risk on a rise in the world today and has consequences on economy and financial markets. Following are few of the reasons cited by economists. A geopolitical event may have a direct or an indirect impact on companies, financial markets, and nation. Some implications are common for all the three. Implication on companies. Implications on a country. Implication on financial markets. Diversification and ongoing risk assessment are important precautionary measures to limit losses during such event. History has it that whenever there are geopolitical events, financial markets show knee-jerk reactions, but eventually normalize over a period of time. An option, though risky to consider when investing during a geopolitical event, is to target assets that would be expected to react during the event. For example, betting on crude would make sense during a geopolitical event, as it would stand to gain from the conflict in Middle East. It is worth watching various international affairs that might give rise to an unwarranted event. The key thing to watch out for is the quantum of geopolitical shock and the ability to transmit it to a broader economy. Tensions in Middle East has cascading effect on India. Gulf countries meet most of India's crude oil requirements. The Middle East is also India's largest export market. Most importantly, the Middle Eastern region is the main source of India's remittances. Rising oil prices on the fear that the production will be impacted due to unrest has clear implications on the rising oil import bill for India. This, coupled with the fear of fallout on the remittances from the region, is also a big negative for the country. Generally, investors do not like uncertainties. Whenever there is an uncertainty, they tend to sell, which in turn results in collective selling, triggering squaring of positions. Importantly, those who have borrowed and invested tend to sell aggressively at any given price. Political environment and policies do not impact market directly, but since they influence customers, investments, and corporate sector, they are bound to have implications on the markets. Investors want stable government and stable policies. A clear majority, apart from stability and continuity of the same government, keeps investors happy, as government do not have to ask for other parties' support to prove majority. Also, there seems to be no speed breaker and government can take bold reforms. In the year 2019, defying unfavorable global markets, domestic indices inched up on Friday as investors cheered the formation of a stable central government following BJP's spectacular victory in the Lok Sabha elections. The Sensex jumped up 1.61%. In the year 2014, the Sensex on May 16th created history by hitting 25,000 mark for the first time, as trends indicated a clear majority for Narendra Modi-led BJP in Lok Sabha. However, it retreated a massive profit booking at end. Early trade was fueled by hopes that BJP government would fast-track reforms and accelerate economic activity. In the year 2009, market hit two upper circuit limits. Actually, May 16th was vote counting day, but since it was a Saturday, stock markets were closed. On Monday, the markets reacted to UPS win. For the first time in Indian stock market history, trading was halted for the day due to market hitting upper circuit limit. The BSE index rose 17.34%. Every party is perceived differently by markets, given their own set of policies and style of politics. Under BJP regime, privatization and decontrolling have helped many PSUs to discover their true value. Also, opening up of certain sectors for FDI and foreign investments have helped a lot in terms of improving the environment for investments, to which market respond positively. So, if BJP government is formed, markets may go up given their perceived image of aggressive reforms and market-friendly policies. Congress too had its share of good policies in terms of spending on infrastructure, promotion of low-cost housing, higher focus on agriculture and rural economy, which had partially helped to avert global financial crisis in the year 2008 and 9 due to higher domestic consumption. Left parties are considered very conservative in their policies, in the sense that their policies are not considered very market-friendly for disinvestment, FDIs, FIIs, labor laws, etc. Policies of different parties may have negative or positive impact on financial markets. Investors turn cautious on government spending on social schemes, including subsidy on oil, fertilizers, and food, which can turn a big hole into government's finances. Individual policies too impact different sectors and companies. For instance, if Transport Minister announces new policies in the road sector and promises to build certain kilometers a day, then whole sector gets re-rated, as the prospects for the companies in that sector seems to be improving. Regional politics also need special mention. Political changes in Uttar Pradesh could have implications on companies in that state, especially sugar companies, because of political parties' minimum support price announcements. In another case, many listed south-based infrastructure companies' balance sheets and profits were hit after Andhra Pradesh former Chief Minister Y.S. Rajshekar Reddy died in an accident, leading to lot of uncertainties, cancellations, and delays in projects and payments of existing projects. Politics also influence individual stocks and group companies due to their strong connection or links with political parties or leaders. Today, scams and frauds are the buzzwords in India. In the last 2 years, we have seen so many of them. It is also real-time learning for those investors who did not know how markets, sectors, and companies could react to scams and frauds, and how the outlook for the sectors and companies change overnight, and share prices tumble with no hope of recovery. Even one of the biggest global financial crises of 2008 was partly due to scams and frauds. Frauds and scams have a rippling impact on stock market due to the fear of loss, sudden selling pressure, and winding up of leveraged positions. In these situations, illiquid stocks suffer the most. The higher the number of people's money and companies involved, the bigger is the size of scam and its subsequent impact on stock market. Scams and frauds are not unique in the sense that they can occur in any section of the economy with one or more involved persons benefiting at the cost of others. Punjab National Bank scam. The major banking fraud was uncovered in Punjab National Bank in 2018, in which several senior officials were found to be involved. Estimated to be more than 13,000 crore, the scam has been dubbed as India's biggest fraud in banking history. PNB officials filed a complaint with CBI against 3 companies and 4 people who were involved, including Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi, claiming that they have defrauded the bank and caused a loss of 280 crore, but later revised it to 13,000 crore. In the early days, Harshad Mehta, who is also known as the Big Bull of Dalal Street, used the banking system and its funds to rig the share price. Share prices of many companies in which he held positions were inflated to significant levels, which in turn also led to rise in Sensex. The Sensex went up a whooping 4.5 times from nearly 1,000 points in February 1991 to 4,500 points in March 1992. Within a few months into the investigation, a bigger scam running into 5,000 to 6,000 crores was found. Within few days, the markets were down by 40% and lost more than 1 lakh crore in market capitalization. Every time a scam occurs, people try to trace the link between people behind the scam and sectors they hail from. This is why many a times scams result in broader sell-off. Also, due to the uncertainty by these scams, investors usually square off their positions and wait for the dust to settle. One of the biggest corporate scam, Satyam Computer scam. A large amount of money was siphoned off from the company by its promoters to fund their own businesses and interests. More importantly, shareholders were under the impression that they owned the funds which appeared in the books. It is also observed that group companies like Mitas in case of Satyam scam also got punished for their direct involvement or due to their promoters' risk. Further, it is also possible that the impact of scams or frauds may be limited to certain sectors or companies. In such a scenario, the fall in markets could only be a temporary correction. The telecom scam hit the markets with investigations going on about allocation of 2G licenses and flow of money among regulators, companies, politicians and others. Post the scam, the sector suffered significant setbacks. Most of the telecom companies were trading close to their lifetime lows. Therefore, it is always better to be associated with a company having clean management with regard to transparency and corporate governance. A good institutional presence could help in protecting the interests of small investors. Regulatory requirements and regulatory changes are often seen as major challenges to growth. Governments are responsible for regulating certain industries. Changes in legislation will make it easier or more difficult for a particular sector to perform. The first crisis that came into fore in mid-1991 is a balance of payment difficulty. This led to breakthrough reforms that include opening up of international trade, deregulation, initiation of privatization, tax reforms, and inflation controlling measures. From 1994, all fertilizers except urea have been decontrolled, while fertilizer subsidy exists, because the benefit of fertilizer subsidy also accrues to customers of farm products and industries which use raw materials from the agriculture sector. Textile industry was facing labor issues and trade restrictions, but all of that changed from January 2005. Abolition of import restrictions of the multi-fiber agreement since January by WTO agreement on textiles and clothing have made markets highly competitive. A country's government shapes the business environment in which companies operate. Government policies such as changes to regulations, taxation, interest rates, and spending programs have a huge influence on individual companies' performance and their stock price. Every company is subject to various forms of taxation, either directly or indirectly, and changes in taxation will affect their performance and share price. A change to the corporate tax a company must pay is probably the most obvious to look for, as this will directly impact how much profits it makes. An increase in corporate tax can even force a company to relocate in order to find a more favorable tax regime in which to operate. Taxes on specific goods or resources can also impact the profitability and share price of related industries. For example, if the government raises fuel tax, companies like airlines or couriers that use a lot of fuel can see their profit margins eroded. These companies may then choose to pass on their cost as higher prices for customers. This could hit demand for their products or services and therefore reduces their revenue. Therefore, when you are looking at a company and considering whether to buy or sell its shares, you shall not only be aware of any specific tax changes that may affect its profitability, but also any changes in tax structure on the resources that the company uses. Monetary policy refers to control of money supply in the economy and using it either to stimulate or cool an economy that central bank thinks is growing too slow or is suffering from high inflation. One way of stimulating an economy by central banks is to lower interest rates. This reduces businesses and consumers' borrowing cost, which frees up cash for spending and investments. Lower interest rates will therefore tend to boost share prices, as companies have lower cost and can invest more in its future growth because customers have more money to spend on its goods and services. In contrast, rising interest rates tend to increase companies' cost. At the same time, consumers have very less money to spend on its goods and services. So, raising interest rates can push share prices down. Governments can also buy government bonds to flood the economy with money. This is almost like printing money. Quantitative easing is another way of injecting money into economy. Most significant impact of monetary policy was the period before economic crisis hit the Indian shores. After a comfortable period of low inflation, the Indian economy started feeling the pressure of rising global commodity prices for the first quarter of FY 2004 and 5. In response to the rise in inflation, the RBI started tightening the monetary policy in September 2004, raising the cash reserve ratio from 4.5% to 5%. As the inflation situations worsened in subsequent period, the tightening of monetary policy became more aggressive. Consequently, inflation declined from around 8% in the middle of 2004 to less than 4% in September 2007. However, keeping with global inflationary trends, domestic inflation once again started rising at the end of 2007, and it became a major headline for the first week of June 2008. when it entered a double-digit range for the first time since 1991 balance of payment crisis. It saw a sharp reaction from the RBI. The speed of monetary tightening was further increased. The credit tightening from 2004 onward ensured a soft landing of the Indian economy. As a result, the growth rate began to slow down from the middle of FY 2007 and 8. Several actions were taken, such as injecting a considerable amount of liquidity into the economy through a series of policy rate cuts. Besides, refinancing schemes were introduced to save sectors such as real estate from the brink of insolvency. Over the past several years, public spending has been one of the main drivers for economic growth and development and has been rising steadily. In jurisdictions where this remains the case, the public sector is seen as a priority for many private businesses. Fiscal policy is where the government undertakes spending programs to stimulate the economy, for example, through big infrastructure projects. You should therefore consider how any announcement of increasing or decreasing government spending could affect the profitability of company. Different sectors will feel the benefit depending on where government spending is focused. If government invests more in areas such as affordable housing, then share price of construction companies can be the first one to benefit, as they will win new business of building homes and roads. Policies and regulations have through the last 2 decades changed the landscape of economy by stepping in with prudential norms from time to time. A single factor alone is not responsible for one-way movement of stock market, as few sectors gain and few others lose. On the other hand, as previously mentioned, few events can take total control over movement of stock market.